Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 2. And this is the second of a three-part film series focusing on this animated adaptation of this iconic story from DC of Crisis on Infinite Earths. And here we have the Anti-Monitor who is trying to destroy the DC Multiverse, and the good counterpart, the Monitor, is trying to convene a group of multiversal heroes to try to stop him. And this whole second film, really, there's a couple of specific character arcs that get incorporated into this specific film. But honestly, if you really strip back the narrative, this whole entire second part is just an endless fight with, like, shadow blob monsters. And you're just like, I don't really think this constitutes a whole entire separate film on its own, and I find that very frustrating because if you really think about this particular segment of this story, it does not feel like it justifies having its own film because it doesn't have a full story. And you do have this dynamic between the Monitor and Supergirl, and Supergirl is a big piece to this film. And her journey and her processing this, her not having anybody from Krypton in her own world, and then having to deal with the fact that, like, there's other worlds where, you know, Superman is still alive, and having those kinds of connections. And sure, I think they do a fine job of exploring that kind of experience for Supergirl, but, like, this feels like a very personal story that, how does this really fit into, like, this big broad context of this is the whole entire, like, fall of the DC Multiverse? And you do have some cool action, and you have this whole sequence with Wonder Woman. You have Jon Stewart's Green Lantern teaming up with this older mysterious character, which I think it's a pretty fun reveal once you realize who it is. And this whole entire sequence with the Bat family. And you know, there's tensions growing between them and stuff like that. You're, like, dropped right in it with them and really trying to get the bearings of where all these characters come from. This film, these three films in general, have this assumption that, like, you have a big understanding of DC Comics to really, like, dive in and understand what the hell is going on here. And you don't have a whole lot of anchor to, like, the main fixtures of the first film, which is kind of frustrating because, like, you're watching this film, this series of films, and it completely shifts gears in terms of focus from the first film to this film in terms of, like, who's your protagonist and who's doing this, who's doing that. Because, like, the first film has, like, a big role for the Flash, and all of a sudden, like, this shifts completely into a very different kind of experience, and it just feels very clunky. It feels really incomplete. It's exciting to watch all the cool action, but the cool action also is just them fighting a bunch of black shadow blobs, and that's particularly not interesting either. And this really does not stand alone as its own film, and is overly convoluted, this whole entire series of three films to begin with, and I'm really hoping that the last one sticks the landing a little bit better, because this suffers from, like, middle film-itis worse than probably any film that I've watched. But those are my thoughts on Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 2. Let me know what you think, and let's talk some movies. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland reviewer.